Yeah.
I also think that because of how our society views sexual abuse and treats the survivor, the victim, I think so many parents are so scared they want to protect their kid.
Yeah.
And so many kids are scared because they don't, especially with today in the world of social media and people canceling people. And I think we have to change how we view sexual abuse and how we treat the survivor.
Yeah. I think that it's the same thing that, like what you said, that parents trust their schools so much that their first instinct is to report it to the school. And then the same that happened with your case, that they report it to the school and then they lay wait and nothing ever happens. And the pedophile stays in the classroom and nothing ever happens. And so they really don't know where to go from there.
That's right.
And that is exactly why we created Broken Trust.
Yes.
Okay, so we are in need of going to a quick break. We will be back in just a moment and we will pick up this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you back here in just a few moments.
Hey there, I'm JJ Humphrey, and I'm inviting you to join me on a journey every week with my podcast, Elephant in the Room. This is where we dig deep, expose corruption, stand up for taxpayers, and defend your rights. Every single episode. But I can't do this alone. That's where you come in. By signing up and supporting this mission for as little as $5 a month, you'll help me continue to shine a light on the issues that matter most to all of us. With your support, we can reach more people, uncover more truths, and fight the battles that need fighting. Join the movement. Be a part of Elephant in the Room. Thank you, and I'll see you on the inside.
All right, welcome back. We are with Ashley Rowland, and we are going to jump right back in. We've got a lot of ground to cover today. So the last thing that we said was the issue that parents trust the schools so much that they report it to the authority, to the school leadership, and then they expect something to happen, and then things don't happen from there.
And we were talking about how, because I do want to say that one more time, with you cannot leave it up to a child to make the decision to prosecute or to go after. And when children are in that position, they're so scared and they're so afraid of their reputation, and especially because every abuse story is different. And so I just want to say that, like, parents need to hear that is the loving and caring thing, is to report it regardless of what their child says.
Yeah. So you are currently working on a degree in counseling. Is that correct?
Remember, we had that talk.
Yes.
Not now.
Okay.
Remember, I had to stop. Yes.
But you have.
But yes,
you
I have gone to school.
towards that.
Yes, I have a master. Yes, I have a master's degree, and I recently went back and took 2 additional classes to get further educated. Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what the statistics show. And do you know, since you've kind of delved into that space, does the research show that the young people and the victims that are victimized, do they recover better if they have conversations about it and if they confront their abuser, or does it just depend on the child?
You know, what most counselors and therapists would believe and say to you is that if you can't say something with your own voice, then you're not going to be able to heal from it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So being in an environment where you are hushed, you might be able to tuck it away, but it's going to ooze out in your life in different ways. It's just a matter of where and when, and if you recognize what that trauma is.
Yeah.
Sexual abuse is one of those things that, especially with what we're talking about with teachers, that's a betrayal of trust and authority and power. It really, most of the survivors I've spoken to, they didn't even tell their husbands. They weren't even able to tell their husbands. It wasn't until they were able to say it to me and really be able to get freedom with their story that then they realized, and there is power in speaking about it. There is definitely power in speaking about it.
Well, and the way you said that, immediately what I thought of is living in your own private prison.
Yes, absolutely, because that's what it is.
Yes. If you're hushed, feeling like you're hushed and that you can't talk about it, then it truly is a silent prison that you're living in.
Which is why I feel like this is still such an adamant problem in our society and here in Oklahoma, is we do treat it as though a lot of times that if you are talking about it, that you're not over it. And this is not the same thing as gossip. And, we were talking about that recently. A lot of people look at that as gossip. This is criminal behavior.
Yes.
That needs to be held accountable.
Yes.
I feel like it's pertinent here to share. I want to share an analogy that someone that her name is Callie McDonald, and she is in Texas doing the very same fight that I'm doing here, because this is a problem everywhere.
Yeah. And many of you, just real quickly, many of you may have seen her video where she stood in front of a Texas legislature and had a conversation with them about her abuse. And we actually found out that her abuser came to Oklahoma, got a teaching certificate in the state of Oklahoma.
After losing his in Texas.
Came to Oklahoma, got a teacher certification, and taught
for
at
3
least,
or 4 years. Yes.
Yeah. Now he doesn't have a certificate anymore, thankfully, but it's
that's
the same
only
one.
Because of the fight. Us, the survivors, having to use their voice to have that taken away.
Yeah.
But I love how she put it, and it's gross, but this is a gross topic. It's if you have a dog that pees in your house and nobody does anything about it, the dog's going to keep peeing in the house. And you send that to somebody else's house. You send the dog to a school, right? In this case, the dog's going to keep peeing everywhere. And at some point, it's going to smell like pee everywhere. That is literally what is going on with pedophiles in our state. Is it has been allowed, and they have been passed, and they have continued this behavior that now you literally have generations that are dealing and handling this trauma in their various ways. We have to take the responsibility off of the survivor. I believe you were who said it, a murder victim, somebody that dies, is not the one that's held responsible to make sure that their murderer gets off the streets. But for some reason, when it comes to sexual abuse, it is left up to the survivor. And if the survivor decides not to speak up very loud, or doesn't fight it, or doesn't speak up at all, nobody else does either, and allows it to continue and passes it along. And that's why I think we have this problem across our state.
Yeah. And in Oklahoma, I mean, everyone is a mandatory reporter. And so it actually, thinking about that, the mandatory reporting law actually takes that off of that responsibility off of the victim, and makes it to where if you suspect, and that's what the law says, is that if you suspect child abuse, and I think a lot of people think about that in the terms of child abuse inside the home, but really it means child abuse no matter what.
Well, and school staff are the largest reporters of child abuse to our DHS system. But they are the smallest reporter of abuse that's taking place within the school walls. But I think that it's kind of like what we were touching on earlier with staying quiet. I think everybody's afraid that they're going to tarnish somebody's reputation. And we're more afraid of tarnishing somebody's reputation and false information getting out than we are about children being slaughtered in their childhood by somebody's perversion.
Yeah, I agree with that. It really just, it shocks me. It shouldn't. I mean, I've got 303 predators on my list, and so it shouldn't shock me anymore, but it absolutely shocks me to know. I mean, there are several school districts across the state right now who have pedophiles in their classrooms, and because the school is not doing their due diligence, or it's either being half investigated, or it's not being investigated at all.
Right.
And, we've got a case very close by here that the superintendent announced in the middle of a school board meeting that the accused was innocent and that the girls who were coming forward were liars.
Oh, goodness.
And what message are we sending to these young people
Stay
who are
quiet. Stay quiet.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to be called a liar. You're going to you're going to have everything drawn out. And I mean, what goes through their heads is 10 times worse than what we could even say. But as a small child or even a teenage child, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That's your whole life. That's your world. You don't see anything outside of school and out of those walls.
Yeah. Yeah. And what everyone seems to forget is that there's a power dynamic there. And even if the coach and the student are close in age, it still doesn't matter. Because that coach or that teacher, they have a lot of power over that young person.
Yes.
If they're an athlete, they control whether or not they get seen by recruiters. They determine whether or not they get into get scholarships and get into colleges and get to play higher ed, at the next level. And so there's a lot of pressure there to conform and also to please.
Yes.
And so,
well, in high school is supposed to be the formative years to send you off into your adulthood.
Yeah.
Not to be something that's manipulated by a middle-aged man or woman who is playing God with their students. I mean, because that's essentially what it is. I mean, we talked about that last episode. I mean, they're literally just pulling the strings because they know everything that's happening in these kids' lives.
They do. Yeah. A lot of the kids, they use them as confidants. They share a lot. Okay, it's time to go to a break real quick. We will see you back here in just a moment. Thank you for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to Capital VIP Transport, where luxury meets convenience right here in Oklahoma City. We're not your typical limo service. We're building something exclusive, something personal, just for a small group of members who value comfort, flexibility, and the VIP experience. Imagine this, whenever you need to ride in style, whether it's a night out, airport run, special occasion, or last-minute plans. We've got a vehicle ready just for you. No stress. No surge pricing, just smooth, same-day service from people you know and trust. We're inviting only 25 individuals in the Oklahoma area to join our Founders Club. As a member, you'll receive your very own VIP ride token every month, plus priority access to our fleet, premium service perks, and exclusive event invites. This isn't about showing off, it's about showing up in comfort, on your terms. We're putting the VIP back in Oklahoma City, and we want you to be part of it. Spots are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone. So if you're ready to ride like you mean it, go ahead and join us today. Click the button below, and I'll see you on the VIP list.
All right, welcome back. And we are with Ashley Rowland. If you're just tuning in, thank you for joining us. Go back and watch the first part of this when you get an opportunity. And if you haven't seen part one, go back and watch part one as well. And let's continue. All right. So you said that there was something that you wanted to say.
Yes, I was going to tell you, you were giving your example of the survivors being called out. And I just today saw that last week, two male teachers and a female teacher, they were, it was like all of a sudden put onto their board agenda. We need to discuss their resignation. And then that was it. I mean, it was literally the smallest board agenda I've ever seen. And you have 3 teachers leaving.
Yeah.
April 18th.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is that?
We both know now that screams red flags.
Yeah.
Now, is it always sexual abuse? No, it's not.
No.
But it's typically a reason that teacher or that parents would want to know.
Yeah.
But there's no disclosure that's put out. Schools aren't wanting to which to me would separate them from the actual behavior because it's not them.
Yeah.
So to disclose, we found nude pictures of being sent. This is why we need to discuss their resignation, if that, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's staying completely quiet and past. And we're literally seeing this on a daily basis.
We are. And, I've thought about this a lot because I just think, if the schools would do the right thing and say, we had this happen, this person is no longer, they've been put on administrative leave. They will not be in the classroom. They're not allowed on campus. Here's what we're doing about it. And, just know that we are all about safety.
Right.
And if they would do that would create more trust inside the community.
Absolutely.
Than putting it under the rug and then the community finding out later through the grapevine that
through
there
a news
was
story or through it.
Yes. Yeah. And finding out later, like once the charges get filed against the person, then, I just look at that and I think, what would make a superintendent and a board make the decision that it was better to hide something?
Right.
That is not better for the community.
No.
That is not better for the reputation of the school. And I've seen in the last several months where some of the schools have said, this is what we found. This person is no longer. They put out a press release. They put out a statement and release it to their community, letting their community know. And that's how you build trust.
I agree.
And I just wish that more of the superintendents and the school boards would see that is the way that you keep your people. Because, if you, I've mentioned before that I've got several schools that have numerous numbers of pedophiles over the years. And, if you get on one of those lists of an unsafe school, what is that going to do with your community?
Well, that's the answer.
Yeah.
It's the community. The community has to start to hold the school responsible.
Yeah.
The community has to hold the school board responsible. If the school board is not doing their job, which is holding the superintendent responsible, then things have to get shaken up.
Yeah.
It's going to take the people doing something. It's going to take people within schools saying, we're not okay with this anymore. We want you to call it out. Or whenever it does, a press release comes out, then you need to have due diligence of what's happening to him, what's going on, because sometimes that press release comes out and still nothing ever even happens.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and there was, one of the thoughts that I had was, you hear the school people say, well, this is an internal investigation because it's a personnel matter. No, it's not a personnel matter. This is a criminal matter. And the schools should not be investigating themselves. That should not be happening that way. It needs to be.
Hey there, this is Representative J.J. Humphrey. I want to encourage all of Oklahoma's great patriots to sign up at okpatriots.net. By supporting these businesses, you are helping to uphold the values and principles that make this state great. Attending Patriot events allows you to connect with like-minded individuals who share your passion for freedom and patriotism. Show your support and be a part of the movement. God bless Oklahoma. Go to okpatriots.net and start saving money while you save America. okpatriots.net. Sign up today.
So everything you're saying is a culture change.
Yeah.
Though that's proactivity on the part of the parents.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, I think that's the solution.
Yeah.
It has to be the proactive. Otherwise, because what you're saying, that's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work.
That's a police force. And then, like you said, you got to go to OSBI because, right, your local law enforcement may not always be what you need it to be.
Yeah.
It's going to take due diligence of of reporting it again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And sometimes again,
Yeah.
but
yeah. And one of the things that I have said, I've gone around and talked to, many groups, and then we've done our parent groups as well. It's like, you've got to go to law enforcement, and you've got to go to the State Department of Ed.
That's right.
And then once you go to those three, you should have report numbers for all three of those incidents. And then you go to the principal, then you go to the superintendent, and you go to all the board members, and you send one email to all of them, and you put all three of those numbers from all three reports on that email. Because one of the things that I'm finding is that in the court documents, the people are saying, just like what with Kaylee, I think, is that her name?
Callie.
Callie from Texas, that one of the things that they're claiming is that they're claiming deniability.
Right.
And so with deniability, there's no liability there. And so they're getting away with the sweeping it under the rug and not investigating and doing the right thing, because they can claim deniability in the courts.
Well, and I think that goes all the way to our laws, right? That if we would, my mission in life right now is to have the statute of limitations completely dropped here in the state of Oklahoma. And I feel like doing something like that, what kind of message does that send? Right? Then not only to the survivor, to the victim, does it say you're in a safe place to come forward, but it also says to the mandatory reporters, you are safe to come forward. And I think if there was more of that backup of come forward, but we've really been submersed in an environment that does not really look at it as the criminal behavior that our laws state that it is. If it was really looked at as the criminal behavior that we claim that it is, why would we have a statute of limitations? Why at all? Why at all would my perpetrator, who I know has abused well over hundreds of girls.
Okay. Hold that thought. We're going to go again to a break, and we will come back. We're going to talk about the statute of limitations. We're going to talk about a couple of the laws in the state that are keeping our victims from getting justice against their abusers. Welcome to Liberty Hill, where faith, freedom, and family take center stage. I'm Sherrie Conley, a mom, a grandmother, a former state representative, a former educator, a child advocate, and someone who believes in protecting our values for the next generation.
And I'm Kendra Wesson, a former state school board member and previous board member of a charter in Norman. I'm also a passionate voice for families and advocate for liberty, and together we are diving deep into the conversations that matter most to you.
If you're concerned about education, parental rights, protecting children, and the future of our nation and our state, you've come to the right place.
We're here to challenge the status quo, speak truth boldly, and equip you with the knowledge and tools to stand up for what's right. After all, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, that's good. Each episode will tackle the tough issues, whether it's the battle over school choice, threats to our constitutional freedom, or exposing the agendas shaping the futures of our children.
And we're not just here to talk. We're here to inspire action, offer solutions, and bring hope to families who feel like they're fighting this battle alone.
So if you believe in faith, freedom, and the power of strong families, join us on Liberty Hill each week, Mondays at 6 p.m.
Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share, and let's build a community of bold voices that will not be silenced.
Welcome to Liberty Hill, where we take a stand and we never back down. All right, welcome back from our sponsors, and we are going to dive into the law now. Ashley, talk to us about the law in the state of Oklahoma that is the statute of limitations. Talk about what it was in 2017 prior to the changes, and then let's talk about what they did in 2017 to make the changes.
Okay, prior to 2017, it was 8 to 12 years. And then in 2018, they changed it.
Okay.
And said that if you were abused, you had until you were 45 to come forward.
You had until what age prior to that?
It was just across the board, 8 to 12 years from the time of abuse.
Oh, 8 to 12 years from the time
of abuse. And I say 8 to 12 years because it changed in that time frame prior, but not very much of a difference. But yes, it was 8 to 12 years from the time of abuse.
Okay.
So if you were 9, you were expected to come forward in that time frame.
So what made the difference between the 8 and the 12 years? Was there a reporting piece of that? Was it 8 to 12 years from the day it happened, or 8 to 12 years from the day you reported it?
I believe at that point it was from when it happened.
Okay.
Not reported it.
Okay.
And then in 2018, it was switched to 45.
Okay.
But that only is for those that are abused after that time frame. They did not make it retroactive.
Okay.
So even though I'm only 40 and I've been trying to get my abuser, which yes, I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I don't want survivors to be able to experience justice.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't even my concern, like I want to protect others from this happening.
Right.
And that to me is why it's so appalling, is that we would know that, I mean, some of these men even have admitted, right.
Mm-hmm.
But because of these statutes, there's nothing.
So let me ask you something. You reported your abuse at 17 years old.
Within 6 months
of it happening.
Yes.
And so since you reported, why can they not, since you were within the boundaries of the law, you were within that 8 to 12 years, why is nothing happening with your abuser?
I agree with you. That's what logically makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why I've said, we have to take the ball from the survivor and as a society do it,
mm-hmm.
because in reality, they're holding me accountable. Essentially, that's how it feels to me, is that because I didn't throw enough hell, because I didn't,
mm-hmm.
make that my priority
mm-hmm.
before that line or that mark, then sorry.
Yeah. But you reported it, and you reported it
right.
within the confines of the law.
Right.
And so technically what the justice system and what the courts are telling you is that your case is not important enough
correct
to do something about it, even though you were within the
right.
requirements of the law when you reported your abuse.
Right. Well, and here we've been talking all this time, right, about how schools are perpetuating this. Well, schools, you only have 2 years to go after.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, like, even as you say that, my brain goes, well, that would be the school's fault, right? Because the school isn't who followed through and did their mandatory reporting
mm-hmm.
and not only excused my abuse, but abuse that was prior to me. And, but no, they're totally in the clear because they're past their 2 years. Like, the schools aren't concerned. The school's main concern are survivors coming forward and telling the truth. That to me at this point is that's their biggest, because we're the ones that are saying that, and they're taking it so personally, rather than going, oh man, why were we doing things back then like that? We need to change how we do things
mm-hmm.
now. So the statute of limitations to me is our state just kind of backing the schools at what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're looking the other way. They're passing the trash. I mean, they're not taking on, most of our DAs aren't taking on cases. I've said it before because I've had it said to me so many times, unless they can slam dunk it. And little kids, they don't feel like they can slam dunk that case.
Yeah.
He said, she said is a lot of times how sexual abuse is looked at.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things that it's a deep-seated stigma against sexual abuse and for the pedophile.
Yeah. It feels like everything is balanced in favor of the abuser
Absolutely.
and not of the abused.
Absolutely.
And so what it just occurred to me is that, maybe that's the reason why the schools are keeping it hush hush and not announcing that the abuse is there, because they're afraid
of being sued.
Yes. And so let's talk about the difference, because You mentioned a 2-year for the school, and then and that is a civil law where a victim has to file a suit before their 20th birthday in order to be able to civilly sue a school for failure to protect. And so we've got two different laws there that we're looking at. We've got a civil case law, and then we've got criminal law. And the civil is for the victim to be able to sue the school, which we've seen a lot. And, I think the last time you and I talked, I say only, but I think I had 8 or 10 on my list. And I now have 19 that I found that have actually been settled. And then many, many more that have been quietly, they've been dismissed, where they go and they settle quietly for probably less than $1 million, in order to be able to get that liability insurance. And so,
do you know what's crazy though, is even as you're saying that, it's because we've made it a money problem.
Yeah.
Rather than we're going to hold you accountable for your crime problem.
Well, and I think what it is that the schools are like, let me throw you some money
and you'll hush.
And you'll be quiet.
That's
you'll
right.
go away. And so the victims are feeling a little bit justified, in getting money to kind of punish them, but it's not costing the schools anything. It's not costing the people who are running the schools. It really, all of the cost is on the victims.
Yes.
And then when it becomes a case like what has happened in Ninnekah and several others, it becomes taxpayers' responsibility. We'll dive into that here in just a minute. But I wanted to make a distinction between civil law and the criminal law.
Yes.
And the civil law is the 2 years. It's not 2 years. It's before your 20th birthday. And then the criminal law is from 2017 forward until you're 25 or 45.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. We've got another break that we are going to go to. Thank you for sticking with us, and we'll see you back here in just a minute.
Hey there, I'm JJ Humphrey, and I'm inviting you to join me on a journey every week with my podcast, Elephant in the Room. This is where we dig deep, expose corruption, stand up for taxpayers, and defend your rights. Every single episode. But I can't do this alone. That's where you come in. By signing up and supporting this mission for as little as $5 a month, you'll help me continue to shine a light on the issues that matter most to all of us. With your support, we can reach more people, uncover more truths, and fight the battles that need fighting. Join the movement. Be a part of Elephant in the Room. Thank you, and I'll see you on the inside.
Sticking with us at Liberty Hill, and we're going to jump right back in. So we were talking about, I mentioned Ninnekah, and I wanted to let you know something that had happened. We haven't had a chance to talk about this, but I want our viewers to hear this as well, because I was really shocked. I got a phone call from a realtor who had a client in Ninnekah who they wanted to sell their house, and they were taken into a meeting, I believe in February is what she said. This is all hearsay, so I have not had a chance to verify any of this yet. But what she said was that her client is afraid that they're not going to be able to sell their house because there will be a lien against their property for the amount of money that they will be responsible for in the lawsuit. So just to bring everybody up to speed, in Ninnekah, Most people in Oklahoma have heard about it. $7.5 million settlement against the school. The school had $1 million in liability insurance, saved $500,000. So the $6 million goes to the taxpayers, and then they are responsible for paying for that over a 3-year period.
Mm-hmm.
There's roughly 350-ish families in Ninnekah Public Schools, 2,100 parcels, give or take, 2,100 parcels. And so the tax burden gets divided between those 350 families and those 2,100 parcels.
Which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. And so depending on the value of your property, how much property you own, will determine how much you're going to have to pay over the next 3 years to pay that off. And so they ask for that money through the sinking fund. And like I said, you get a tax bill at the end of the year that says this is how much your property tax is going to go up. And, and
wasn't like the median income like 50,000 or something?
Somewhere around 50,000. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said that they felt like the median income is probably a lot lower than that.
Yes.
And so, what does that do? It is a heavy burden. I really, really wish that Ninnekah, the Grady County commissioners would have done what the Kingfisher County commissioners did and said, no, you're not passing this on to the people. You figure this out.
That's right.
22 people, 22 educators in Kingfisher lost their jobs. I'm not happy that those educators had to lose their jobs, because that hurts the children.
Yes.
Even further.
But I will say, I would think if you're in Kingfisher in the future, you're going to speak up when you see something.
I sure hope so.
I would think.
I sure hope so. But I'm very glad they in Kingfisher, they were expecting a 12% increase on their taxes over a 3-year period to pay that $5 million off. And so in Ninnekah, that $6 million, I haven't heard what the percentage is going to be on the people's property. I haven't, like I said, this just happened over the weekend, so I haven't had a chance to dig into that yet.
Right.
But I'm curious what's going to happen. And I wish that they would have told the school, no, you figure it out, because this is your burden. This is your responsibility. The court said the school failed to protect.
That's right.
So it should not be the taxpayers.
That's right.
With that burden to pay that off, because they're not the ones that failed to protect. It was the school that failed to protect.
Right.
They need to be held accountable for that. I'm sorry. I get really, really passionate about that.
I agree.
It really makes me angry to think that we've got.
That's why people have to start to speak up. That people have to see that the schools are not going to be the ones that are going to be held accountable when they fail to report. So as individuals in our communities and across our state, we have to start to come together and say, this is a problem.
Yeah.
This is a problem. We have to do something different. Look at what's going on in Ninnekah. We will not be okay with this, but until it affects people themselves, they tend to not get involved.
Yeah.
And we have to see this as being proactive and protecting the future children and the kids that are still in school. And people do tend to care when it affects their wallets. So people can start to see, this is bigger than taxes. And my goodness, do you know how much of our healthcare system is crippled by mental health right now? And a large portion of that is dealing with sexual abuse.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and when we've got a case, I believe you've talked to Melody, haven't you, Mel?
No.
Down in Eagletown. Yeah. We've got a case where a woman who is just fighting tooth and nail down in the Eagletown area.
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about. Yes, Trey.
Where her son Trey committed suicide after he had been sexually abused. And I looked up some of the suicides in some of the counties, and there are a couple of counties that have a really high number of suicides between the ages of 12 and 24. And I found that really curious. I'm interested to dig into that, to see if we can figure out if there's any other victims of sexual assault who have killed themselves, and we don't know that is the reason why they took their own life. Is because they were not protected by the school. That's their number one job, is to protect the children. And there's all sorts of bad outcomes that
and we understand that abuse is going to happen. But it's what you do with it. It's how you respond. It's how you react. It's how then that message gets passed on to those little kids that are watching, and to parents in the community and other teachers watching. But the wrong message right now continues to be most of these teachers know they're safe.
Yeah.
Most of these teachers know they're safe.
I think you're right. I think that they, so many of them have been passed on from school to school, and they have gotten away with it for so long. Look at Ron Arthur, 15 years in Shawnee Public Schools.
Right.
He didn't even have to get passed on.
That's right.
They just continued just kept him and let him continue to sexually assault boys in that school for 15 years.
And I'm sure you've read the court papers. I mean, some of that is absurd. Having him do a book report whenever he's been found to be abusing and having inappropriate relationship with male students.
Yeah. The case that is currently getting ready to get into the court system down in Wetumpka with Brett McGee and his alleged 30-year crime spree.
That's right.
Across several, at least 2 school districts that we know of.
Well, and that's the thing. We recognize, I know you recognize, we're both believers and followers of Christ. We know that people can change.
Yep.
But I truly believe that if people have changed, then they will hold themselves accountable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like my husband's been, 13 years almost sober from alcohol and from pills or any of those things. Right.
Yeah.
He screams it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is a huge difference whenever you acknowledge where you've been and how God has transformed you. But whenever you still can't even acknowledge and you stay in the same playground that you were abusing before.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time. Whose kid is it next?
Yeah.
All
right. We've got one more break. We're going to come back here in just a minute. Let's take one more break and we'll be back for our last segment.
Hey there. This is Representative J.J. Humphrey. I want to encourage all of Oklahoma's great patriots to sign up at okpatriots.net. By supporting these businesses, you are helping to uphold the values and principles that make this state great. Attending Patriot events allows you to connect with like-minded individuals who share your passion for freedom and patriotism. Show your support and be a part of the movement. God bless Oklahoma. Go to okpatriots.net and start saving money while you save America. okpatriots.net. Sign up today.
All right, back with our last few minutes. Is there anything that we have not talked about over the last episode and tonight that you want to talk about?
Well, there are lots of ways for people to get involved, but there are at the base of this, our laws have to change. And for our laws to change, people have to speak up and tell their legislatures what they want. Mm-hmm. So, some laws we've talked about, is if a teacher is found to be abusing a student, that their pension goes on freeze while being investigated. We've heard lots of stories where they're able to access their pension and use that to have defense. Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, while my big goal is to have the statute of limitations completely dropped, and I ask you, if you are on board with that, then please contact your legislatures and let them know that you want the statute of limitations dropped. That will be the only way that we get pedophiles out of the school system, out of our churches, out of, anywhere, right? That children are vulnerable. But it's going to take speaking up and letting them know. So if there's a bill that pops up that's for taking away pension, if that's a bill that comes up for holding school boards or superintendents responsible, it's paying attention to what is going on in legislation. So that way, whenever you need to contact it, because I have learned that does work. It does. Flood their office with phone calls, flood them with emails, and they do listen. They do listen, but you have to be speaking. Otherwise, they're going to hear the other side as to all the reasons why that's going to be hard for teachers, or how that's going to, House Bill 3958. I love it. It protects. It is a bill that Sherrie Conley has been responsible for passing, and it protects our children in communication with teachers. We get that there's a hindrance at times, that it might be an extra step, but it's an extra step to keep our kids safe. And if you're not a pedophile, you should welcome accountability. You should welcome whatever it's going to take, because you might be a good teacher, but others aren't. So, being active in that, being active in your school board, being active and paying attention to what's going on with your student. And, we touched on it in the prior message, but I want to make sure and say again, this sexual abuse touches all students. Your child is not, going to be protected just because of who you are or your relationship with them. And when we've seen from across the spectrum, male, female, young, teenager, thinking they're being, groomed to be a love interest, all the way down to getting them drunk and raping them. So, it's recognizing that our children are vulnerable, and as parents and as members of society, grandparents, you don't have to have a kid in school to speak up to your legislation and say, we want laws that are going to hold the pedophile accountable and protect the survivor.
So you have participated in several of our parent meetings, and I just want everyone on the other side of the camera, you guys, if you want to know more about what we're talking about, if you want to know how to protect your children, if you want to know what the signs of grooming are, if you want to know how to talk to your child and how to prepare your child to understand what grooming looks like, I think that is part of the key, is to teach our children that when somebody does something to them, I always refer back to, and it's kind of silly that if you weren't watching Saturday Night Live back during this day, you don't really know what it is. But, they used to talk about no-no squares. There was a little skit called No-No Squares on Saturday Night Live. And, that was kind of a public service announcement. They were doing it all in fun, but it's a serious thing that we're not, are we teaching our young people what a no-no square is, for one thing, at an early age, so that when they grow up and somebody touches them on the shoulder or puts their arm around their waist and puts it too low on their back, or, are we telling our young girls and our young boys, don't go into a room by yourself with an educator or with someone in the school. And, and the thing is that we need the schools to adopt that policy. We've got a lot of churches that
That's
after
what I was
that came
say.
out,
That needs to be the school needs to say no one-on-one with teacher. But I apologize for interrupting you.
No, you're
probably
okay.
Because I'm who I am is why, but I feel the need to say, well, because I'd remember the skit, but it's also teaching your kid the actual appropriate words. They need to know vagina. They need to know penis. This doesn't need to be things that are embarrassing, right? It's their body.
That's right.
But it's also teaching them it is not their fault if someone touches them.
That's right.
It's not their fault if they made the mistake and went by themselves with somebody they trusted. Right?
That's right.
Because you're most of the time underneath this pretense that you're safe. And then all of a sudden, you're not. So it's teaching them that it is not their fault, period. Even if they think they consented, you're a child and you cannot consent.
And I think that we need to reinforce the idea with our students and our kids and our grandkids that yes, the majority of the teachers are good people and they would not hurt them.
Right.
But they cannot assume that because they're a friend of the family or a family member,
right,
or a longtime revered coach or teacher or school employee or the principal or the superintendent, that they're not capable of hurting them.
That's right.
Because they are.
Well, it's no longer the person in the bush anymore, right?
That's right.
It's the person that's trying to get closest with you.
That's right.
And that's where that's where it really sucks, because you want to have people that come in your kid's life and love them and mentor them and disciple them. But at the same time, you have to teach your children. Yeah. Unfortunately, one of those people might be the one to cross that line, and it's going to be a safe place for you when and if that happens.
And, one of the things that I want parents to understand, and I want teachers to understand as well, and other school employees, is that the thing that we have to remember is that there is a grooming process that they go through. And so the warning signs are there. If the kids know what those warning signs are ahead of time, it will avoid the abuse actually taking place if we will teach our children
and it's so
what to look for.
Yes, but it is also very confusing for a child. It really is. Somebody gives you a gift, it feels good. Your initial thought isn't to think they're trying to abuse me. So it's we have to give them those keys, but then there also has to be safe room for whenever they realize,
oh my gosh,
this is what has been happening. I didn't tell them when this started happening 7 months ago because I thought it was, I thought, you know what I mean? Innocent.
All right. Well, we are unfortunately out of time. Thank you so much, Ashley, for joining us. I really appreciate you being here. I know that we have many, many more conversations that we could have. And so we will definitely have those. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Liberty Hill. And we will see you again next Monday, the 28th of April at 6 p.m. Thank you. Welcome to Liberty Hill, where faith, freedom, and family take center stage. I'm Sherrie Conley, a mom, a grandmother, a former state representative, a former educator, a child advocate, and someone who believes in protecting our values for the next generation.
And I'm Kendra Wesson, a former state school board member and previous board member of a charter in Norman. I'm also a passionate voice for families and advocate for liberty, and together we are diving deep into the conversations that matter most to you.
If you're concerned about education, parental rights, protecting children, and the future of our nation and our state, you've come to the right place.
We're here to challenge the status quo, speak truth boldly, and equip you with the knowledge and tools to stand up for what's right. After all, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, that's good. Each episode will tackle the tough issues, whether it's the battle over school choice, threats to our constitutional freedom, or exposing the agendas shaping the futures of our children.
And we're not just here to talk. We're here to inspire action, offer solutions, and bring hope to families who feel like they're fighting this battle alone.
So if you believe in faith, freedom, and the power of strong families, join us on Liberty Hill each week, Mondays at 6 p.m.
Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share, and let's build a community of bold voices that will not be silenced.
Welcome to Liberty Hill, where we take a stand and we never back down.